Good morning. Welcome to the May 17th budget review session, and I apologize for starting a little bit late. Was an accident, I guess, on I-185. We certainly hope that nobody was injured. Hope everybody's okay. But we're going to get started and turn things over to our Deputy City Manager, Ms. Hodge.
Good morning. This is the May 17th budget review session. Today we have two presentations, one from the police department and one from elections. We did have a couple that needed to reschedule for some family reasons for next week. So we will have a full schedule next week for the final budget review session. And we have passed out to you a revised schedule, and we've passed out to you the add-delete list of where the things that have been added to date. I will call your attention to a couple of items that were added for staff requests. One is on the municipal court clerk. We have inadvertently left her overtime off, so we have put that on the add-delete list for your consideration. And on the second page for community reinvestment, the reclasses have been reviewed by UGA, and there were two that they recommended from 12 to 14 pay grade, and so we've added those. Those would be covered within the CDBG and home grant, so we wanted to put those on. They were not part of the recommended budget. They're in addition to that. The reclasses came back a little bit higher than what was included in the recommended budget. And at this time, we'll go ahead and get started with the police department, and it'll be followed with HR to go through the police pay reform that's included in the budget. I'll turn it over to Chief Warren.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Chief.
I really appreciate the invitation to come this morning. This is basically going to be a brief overview of the department, our functions, and our progress over fiscal year 2015 and some into fiscal year 2016. The original calls for service for 2015 were 171,386 calls. If you add the self-dispatch calls into this, which are the calls that the officer runs up on as he's doing his beats every day or going to and from beat, you would add another 31,139 calls to that, for a total of 202,525 calls for the year. The phone calls into the 911 center, the landline number is 322,899. That's going to be the number of times that the phone actually rings as a request for a call for service. If you add the cell phone numbers to that, it comes out to 498,501 calls for the year. Accidents worked, and we're having, yes ma'am.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but who's doing your slides, because it's not showing what you're speaking of?
No, that was just an add-on. That's not on the slide.
Okay.
I'll be back in line with that in just a second.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
The accidents worked are 12,693, and we have a lot going on out there as we speak today. Private property accidents, 3,927 for the year, and we took a total of 58,780 reports. Dispatch time trends as we saw them, priority threes are your light and your siren when you call and there's something going on and it's an in-progress call. The average dispatch time, this is the time from the phone rings to the 911 operator gets all the information she needs and it's actually dispatched to a car, is 2.75 minutes. Now, that's an average. Some of it's a lot less, some of it could be just a little more. The service trends, also in Recorder's Court, we put 64,626 cases in front of the recorder last year. We wrote 47,223 tickets last year. We arrested 8,984 individuals for the year. That is a little of a decrease from the year before, but we have to attribute that to shortages of manpower and also Part 1 crimes being down for the year. Part 1 crimes for last year, we're down in murder, We were up in rape, that was reported rapes, by 21. Robbery was up by 34 from the year before. Aggravated assaults are down, burglaries were down, larcenies were down, and auto thefts were down. Part 1 crimes are down some 2,018 crimes from the year before. This is a 14% reduction from year 2014, and it's a 9% reduction over a 5-year period. Some of the activities, community service that we're involved in the department, and we're proud to say that through Major Wright's effort, we had a 2016 Pastors Academy. We had a total of 14 local pastors that attended this academy. We held it 5 Mondays, Monday afternoons, 4 Monday afternoons, and we basically gave them an overview of the department, which included a ride-along as well as a shoot, don't shoot scenario, where they were taken into the firearms training room and run through scenarios just like a regular police officer during training. Citizens Law Enforcement Academy, we hold 2 classes a year, anywhere from 15 to 25 students per class, and then at the end of that we hope they join the alumni for the program and then help us in the community with different functions.
Excuse me, Chief. Counselor Thomas.
Chief, I've had a couple of people ask me how they can get involved in the Citizens Law Enforcement Academy. Would you just give us what the process is if someone wants to do that?
If you'll call my office at 225-3100 and ask for Lieutenant Ross. Lieutenant Ross is in charge of it. He's here today, and he will do the paperwork. It will require a background check, and then from that point in time, they'll be put on a list. They'll be called from that when there's an opening in the class for their participation. And
Thank
then
you, Chief.
it's an 11-week course, and it's on Thursday nights for 11 weeks.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. The Neighborhood Watch programs, we have 151 neighborhoods in Columbus. 80 of them have an active Neighborhood Watch program, and we participate in each one of those. A driving awareness program that we teach that includes all 11th grade students in Columbus, Muskogee County. We actually take a cone course. We'll set it up at the school with electric cars, and then we have goggles that are worn that gives them a varying degree of intoxication because of the glasses that they wear, and then we put them through that cone course. Special Olympics, and tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock we do have the torch run that will be held. We'll pick the torch up from Fort Benning in the west parking lot of the police department, and we will run it up to Oliver Marina, and then it will go on from there to Harris County and basically all the way back to Emory University at some time over the summer. There's 4 different routes. We'll have one of those routes. The Special Olympics is and especially the torch run is this is the largest fundraiser of the year for Special Olympics. We also have a poker run involving motorcycles, a golf tournament, and of course a car show that we host here in Columbus, and all proceeds of that go to Special Olympics. The DARE program, we have 3,200 fifth grade students that attend that program in the public school system, and also a great program that we have some 2,179 seventh grade students in this. And we're in the process now of putting together a summer program, and it's called Dare to Be Great. That will be held this summer for a 30-day period. One will be held at Double Church's Middle School and the other one at Fort Middle School. There will be a varying degree of functions, lunches, instruction during that summer process involving officers with the Columbus Police Department. National Night Out is the first Tuesday in each August of each year. Last year we left with 10 motorcade routes into different areas of Columbus, into different neighborhoods, where we met with the citizens, we ate with the citizens, and then we motorcaded then to other neighborhoods. It's
Excuse me.
usually a big turnout in the neighborhoods, especially your neighborhood watch programs turn out in force for those.
Excuse me, Chief. Counselor Woodson?
Chief, thank you very much. I just had a question, if you don't mind, going back to the Dare to Be Great camp. How do the students are picked, and how many students can attend?
300 per class, 300 is the max we can take at Fort, and 300 at Double Churches Middle. And I have Major Wright here today. She's in charge of that program for the police department. And Major, if you want to come up and just give her the instructions for applying.
So the program is only specifically to those two schools?
That's the only
Yes,
two
I'm-
locations
Oh,
that we have. They come from
locations.
everywhere, but
That's
those are
what
the
I
only
wanted
two.
to find
Those
out.
are the only two locations that we have.
These are
Makes-
DARE students that completed the DARE program during the year. They can come to the camp, and also the great students that completed 7th grade can come to the DARE camp. We give out applications in the school. The counselors help us out with that, and we try to put at least 300 students in the camp.
Oh, okay, so I haven't heard about it, that's why I'm asking the questions. I think it's great, I'm interested, I love the program. I supported both of those programs all the years. I was just trying to make sure so that people that are listening or call us and ask us about it, we're able to tell them, how it works. So if I understand you correctly, the student, it could be from any school, but the student had to participate in the DARE program and the GREAT program in order to go to the GREAT camp.
That's correct.
And then there'll be an application process which they can get it from their school
They can get it
counselor.
from the school, or either they can call my office at 653-3150, and we can give them an application.
And it's 300 children.
We're trying to put 300 right.
Try. Okay. All right. Well,
Just
thank you.
one more quick question. How's that staffed? Is that all CPD personnel that run
It's all
that?
CPD, and this year, the Marshall unit have one officer that's helping us out.
That's great. That is outstanding.
I think it's cool.
What are the dates?
Oops.
You have the dates.
The date's June 6th,
Through what?
the end of June. The last day of June.
Can we come by and visit?
Oh, please do.
Okay. Thank you.
And eat lunch. Citizens Against Drugs support group is probably one of the largest support groups that we have in Columbus. We participate in marches, campouts, award presentations, and they also do a fallen officer memorial. Project Lifesaver, which is one of the newer programs that we have. Project Lifesaver currently monitors 6 individuals that are people that tend to wander during the day because of medical illnesses, whether it be Alzheimer's or dementia or whatever. And if we have individuals that basically their caretakers have problems with keeping up with them, they come to us. We furnish them with a bracelet. The bracelet then can be monitored. We have special officers that can monitor these. We also have special equipment that can monitor these, and then if an individual walks away, then we can send those monitoring officers or vehicles into the neighborhood and hopefully locate them before any harm comes to them. That's been fairly successful. All of the monies that we're using for those comes from donated funds. Citizens, our seniors and lawmen together, which is a big program involving the seniors and law enforcement in our community. We have a monthly meetings that's held at the police department, as well as a yearly seminar that we normally host at the Civic Center. Anytime that there's a crime on an elderly person within our community, that information goes to Major Wright, and Major Wright hosts those meetings at the police department, and we will then give them instructions as to how to react or who to notify if they have something similar that's happening to them within the community. And those basically are just people getting ripped off for things like painting and landscaping and front driveways poured, anytime that seniors are targeted in scams.
Chief, two quick questions. I'm sorry to interrupt. Mayor Pro Tem was interested in the time for the summer camp.
The time, it's from 8 in the morning.
The kids were reported 10.
10?
Okay, 10.
And it goes till 4. All right, one last thing, just because I'm getting hard of hearing. How many neighborhood watches do we have in effect right now?
There's 151 neighborhoods, but we have 80 active
80.
neighborhood watches
Okay.
in Columbus.
That's pretty good. All right, thank you.
The body cam program, I think Councilor Woodson asked about this in one of the last sessions. We have 131 of them that are actually in inventory issued to officers. I just ordered 100 new ones. They are not in yet. We're exploring new technology when it comes to the body cam, especially the downloading and the retention of record. Retention of record is extremely expensive, and under the Georgia retention laws, they were requiring us to hold those records for 5 years. So anything that we taped, whether it was a dash cam on a car or a body cam on an officer, we were required by Georgia law to hold on to those records for a total of 5 years. There was some discussion in front of the Georgia Assembly this past year. I had contact with some of our state representatives in reference to that, but I was not the only one. Officers, chiefs, sheriffs from around the state of Georgia also had concern with the retention period on these, and they have now reduced it from 60 months to 30 months. We tried for 24 months, but the General Assembly at least reduced it, cut it in half. So that'll save us a little money down the road in retention of those records. With some of the cameras, or all of the cameras basically, the download time from the time an officer fills a camera to come back in and turn that camera in to be downloaded for storage is time consuming. It's also personnel consuming. We're in the process of doing that now, but on occasion we have to have at least 2 cameras per officer in order for when one of them's downloading for record, he then can take the other one and go back to the street. So we're having a little problem with that right now. We're hoping that with the newer development of technology, that hopefully in the near future there will be other devices on the market that may be a little better as far as the manpower to download these are concerned. We're also waiting for a new system to come on the market, and we'll be interested in those when it happens, to where the dash cam in a car and the body cam on an officer will be in sync. When the officer gets back in the car, it will automatically then download to the same system as the dash cam. And then we will not have the download time that it takes now, because we're basically having to keep up with 2 units per officer per car. And hopefully that'll work out. If it is, we'll be interested in it. We'll look at it as soon as it comes on the market. Major projects that we are either underway with or we've completed over the year. One of them is the 525 building, as we refer to it, 525 10th Avenue, which is a storage building that the council approved for us, mayor and council, for us over the past, I would say 2 years ago. We have totally remodeled that building. We have got plenty of security on that building, and it's taken a very drastic load of the stuff that we're currently obtaining in the department to that area. There's nothing there that anybody would want to go down and break in, like money and alcohol and drugs. We don't keep any of that there. This is the bigger stuff, the seizures that we make, the found property that we have, and the large items that we can no longer afford to keep at the police department because we don't have the room for it. We have upgraded all the 911 capabilities, and I do have Major Sweeney here today if we need to ask specific questions, and Councilor Davis did ask for a briefing on the 911 center in one of the last meetings. The 911 backup center here in this building has been completed. It is functional, and on occasion we come over here and we operate all the 911 calls for the city out of this facility so that all the 911 dispatchers, if and when we need this facility, will be familiar with this equipment. Now, on a major incident, we can run both facilities at the same time, and everybody would think that they were in the room with each other based on the equipment that we have in there, and officers on the street would not know where they were being dispatched from, either whether, if it was this building or if it was the building down at the police department. The 911 Mitigation Assurance Program, as we call the MAP program, is something that we sat down with a couple of years ago through Motorola, and we realized that the maintenance monies that we were paying on a yearly basis almost was as much as what it would cost us to be involved in this program. This is a 10-year program, and over a period of 10 years, the entire 911 system would undergo an upgrade, and this would be the quality of the equipment, the software, hardware, training, and everything, including some of the radios that have to be swapped out. The MAP system, I think it's $950,000 a year more than what we would have to pay normally in the regular maintenance monies. It was a very solid program when we got involved in it, and at the end of 10 years, when they walk away from the contract, the 10-year contract, everything in our system will be current, everything will be the best that's on the market, and it will all be included under the cost of that system. The P25 radio system is the system that we're referring to. We're in the process now of totally putting the P25 system in place that has upgraded all of the radio system in Columbus, Muskogee County, including the radios that Public Works carries, Metro carries, other areas within the city that actually carries a radio. They're all included under this program. It will bring them up from the old analog system. Everything will now be digital. It'll bring us into the new age of technology. Within the next probably 4 to 5 years into this, all of the non-law enforcement radios will be replaced. And then they will all have the abilities and capabilities of using the digital system. The record management system, again, Major Sweeney is here today if there's specifics involving the system, is underway. It's functional. We've had some areas involving hotspots. We still don't have enough hotspots around the city for the officers. This building is one of the areas that does possess a hotspot, and that's the reason you'll see the blue and whites parked out front, sometimes more than one, because they're doing their paperwork. And they have to be close to a hotspot in order to do it, where that antenna's talking from the car back to the public safety building. There's other areas in Columbus that also have the hotspots, and we're considering at this time maybe the possibility of putting some air cards in some of these vehicles to keep the cars from having to travel from point A to point B to do reports and in fact stay on their beat. And through the air card system, we would be able to communicate back and forth to the public safety building until the hotspots are in place. All of the hotspots are in place. It's an ongoing process. It's time-consuming. It's costly. The money's there. It's just the time consumption of getting the wires pulled to put the antennas in areas that's already been identified within the city. Major repairs to the 510 building, which is the public safety building. I think everybody knows that building is 21 years old. It's in need of some things, maintenance on the inside, carpet on the inside, paint on the inside. You'll see in the very near future, out of some existing money, a request for $60,000 worth of carpet within that building, but it'll come from the current budget. It will not be monies that is not already available. Computers for investigators. With the new record management system, we have had a need for investigators when they're out in the field to communicate back and forth with the record management system for paperwork. Most of their paperwork, of course, would be done at the public safety building, but on occasion, major cases out in the field, they might need to at least start reporting, do the original reports in reference to major crimes. We have recently bought some 58 computers, and that was done out of the existing money in the budget. We have them. They're in the process now of putting all the software on them and then training investigators as to how to use those. Money's already there. The e-ticketing system is something that we've been working on through the city manager for a period of probably 3 years, waiting on the record management system to come into play, because this is an addendum to that system. When I say an addendum, it takes that system to drive, this software to drive that system for the function that we need in order to get tickets from the car, citations from the cars, back to the police department as well as to Recorder's Court through a swipe process inside the car, which is no different than you'd swipe a credit card in the store. Driver's licenses with the barcodes on the back can be swiped in the car. The ticket through a printer inside the police vehicle will print the citation. This part of the citation then will automatically come to the police department. The other part of the citation will automatically go to Recorder's Court for the case to be processed and set. Now, this will also give Recorder's Court the ability to pay fines online through this system. And it's something that we've needed for a long time, and we're right around the corner now from putting that in cars. The software will have to be placed in the cars, as well as printers will have to be put in the car, but the money is already there for that process. Staffing trends within the department 2015. This is where we're having our biggest problems within the police department, is keeping our staff, either hiring new individuals in or retaining the individuals that we already have inside. And you'll hear a presentation in just a few minutes as to a process that we think will help us with some of our recruiting and hiring. During a 5-year period, and that's 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, with all the hiring that we have done, we're still 21 people less than the entire hiring process that took place over a 5-year period. And we were already short prior to that. So that was another 21 on. We started a program called Join the Force for Good, and we've got a great individual that's assisting us with that, in Clyde McQueen. And those are all of the billboards that you see around Columbus. We started, it came along, it was looking good, and then the applications, they were on a rise, then they started going down again. We went out and refreshed all the signs. We started doing other things with an online process that we're looking at and we're involved in. We also contracted with Carmike Theaters, to where if you go to a movie and watch a movie in Columbus, the advertising that's in the front of that, one of them is a scroll about the police department, and it's basically the same marketing film that I have showed here in council a couple of times. That reaches approximately 20,000 people a week that go to movies and watch that. We're hoping that that'll help us. The NeoGov application process, we're hoping that that helps us. Last year we went to some 35 job fairs, and believe it or not, job fairs we don't benefit a lot as far as individuals wanting employment with the department through job fairs. And we have seen that, or not seen that, take place as far as applicants are concerned over the past couple of years. However, in July of this year, and that'll be after the budget is approved and we know the dollar amounts that we can offer for employment, in July of this year we will host a job fair at the police department in the community room, and it will be an all-day event, and it will be publicized all over the Southeast prior to holding that event. But at that time, we will at least know how much in salary and benefits that we'll be able to offer a prospect coming through the door. exit interviews. Everybody that goes out the door of the police department, we do interviews, if they'll fill it out. It's a voluntary basis, but most everybody does. And the four of the things that we see from everybody that goes out the door: salary, benefits, work scheduling, and advancement potential. I don't see really the advancement potential when I think about all of the individuals that I have promoted within the police department over the last couple of years. We have promoted a lot of people. But on some of the millennials, when they come in the door, and the first thing they want to know is when they're going to get promoted. You know, when are they going to be able to sit in the chief's chair? There's a time period that we require on different ranks for different periods of time for nothing other than just training, education within the department, being able to function as a police officer on the street, and that doesn't come overnight. That comes with experience, that comes with supervision and training, and that also comes from being out there on the street and seeing incidents as they are happening. But those are four of the things that we see. The current salaries within the department should be on this slide. High school education, $36,800. That sounds good. It is good. Anywhere that you can come in and make that kind of money, it's good. But when you take away the cost of the benefits, these numbers go down dramatically. And when you're talking, and I know the city pays them what they can give them, the raises are out there, but even with some of the raises we get where it's putting $5 a paycheck into the pocket of a police officer, he would spend that the first day going to the Burger King. And I realize, but what everybody needs to realize with police officers, this is a commodity that everybody wants. If you've got a trained officer, one that's already been through the Mandate Academy, one that's doing an excellent job on the street, one that has been trained, then other departments will come in, headhunt that individual, offer him a package, and then take him out of Columbus. It's happening more and more and more. And specialty trainings like, and I'll just use for instance, like the motor squad, we put a lot of money into them with accident reconstruction, with special investigation involving train wrecks, fatalities where when you get on the scene in the reconstruction of the accident, we'll tell the officer what took place, especially if you have deceased individuals in cars with no witnesses. The only way that we can make a judgment or a findings in that is through the trainings that they receive. And we'll have a presentation here in just a few minutes. Some of the awards that we have within the department, one of those is CALEA. It's national recognition. We're on our 7th reaccreditation as we speak. We have been within the program since 1993. We have received 6 reaccreds prior to this. We're in the process now of having an on-site for our 7th one that will take place in October of 2016. It takes us about 10 months to prepare for this, and we actually have a group seated in order to get us into it and through it, and then to a panel of judges that I'll be required to sit in front of in January of next year. I think it's in Mobile, Alabama, and then we will get the questions through myself as to the inner workings of the police department and the positives and any negatives that they could find. We have to meet 400, or there are 480 total standards to be that the program has. However, we only have to be in compliance with 358, but most of the time we're in compliance with just about all of them, with the exception of we don't have a jail, and there's other things that we do not have to be in compliance with because we literally don't possess them. The state of Georgia certified since 1999. This is our 6th award. We will be certified in the state of Georgia again. We have been since '99. We have to meet 129 standards for the state of Georgia in order to be certified. And to give you an example of what this means for the police department, in the United States, there's about 18,000 police agencies. 643 of those 18,000 are accredited. We're one of those 643. There's 664 police agencies in the state of Georgia, and there's 142 of them that are certified, and we're one of the 142. It's a long process. There's a lot of paperwork, and you have to really, really, really monitor these standards on a day-to-day basis. Concerns: continued retention of personnel, a salary maintenance program, cost of living, facilities updates and maintenance, compliance with the Georgia Open Records Act, very consuming for us. The post-recertification training requirements, state requirement for retention of digital storage, and we talked about that just a few minutes ago. The proposed budget for the police department is $28.8 million in general fund, $11.2 million out of lost, for a total of $40,149,471. This year's capital that's already in the budget request will be for cars, technology, body armor, and the essentials. The list was much, much longer, but because the mayor and council allowed me to spend some savings that I currently had in the budget, I have cut this list probably by 2/3, and most of the stuff that we need is already purchased. I'm in the process of purchasing some more things as we speak, which as a result of that has allowed me to take it out of the FY17 request. Now, if you have any questions with that before I get our HR director up to go through the proposed police reform monies, I'll be glad to answer them at this time.
Councilor Davis.
Chief, thank you so much for sharing with us this morning. I want to circle back to the concern about 911.
I'll get Major Sweeney to come up and address those for you.
Okay.
Major. And as you know, Major Sweeney's in charge of the bureau that has the 911 center.
Yes, sir.
Major Sweeney, good morning.
Good morning.
I've had a lot of, including myself, I've had a lot of people ask the question, why do we get rerouted? When citizens call 911, why are they rerouted to Russell County and some instances Albany before it gets to the Columbus Police Department? I know that's a concern out there, but anything that was talked about today, is that in the works to try to improve that, or is that something that's just out of the department, the police department's hands? It's all somewhere out there in the technology world, or what?
Well,
Tell me about that a little bit, and if there's anything that's in the works in improving that.
I think that there's two different kinds of phones that people use to talk to us now. First, your traditional landline that it sits on the table at home and is wired in with a wire. And when you pick that up and dial 911, we know about it because every address in Muskogee County is identified and pre-identified, and we have a beat car and everything assigned to that, and we get that data directly from the phone company. Where we run into the problems that you described here is when you deal with cellular phones. And every time we make a presentation or go to meet with the mayor or any of those places and we talk about cellular phone calls, we make sure that we urge folks to understand that when they're talking on a cellular phone, they're talking on a radio. And that thing moves around, of course. That's why it's useful to you. But it's also talking to a tower somewhere. When you dial 911, it's looking for and going to talk to a tower. Not necessarily the closest tower, but the strongest tower. So the radio system that runs the cellular phone system, without getting down in the weeds, polls strength and it sends it to a tower. Now in Columbus and Phoenix City and areas like us where we have a relatively spread out cellular tower system, high-power towers rather than micro towers like you might see in a heavily urban area like downtown Atlanta or New York City or something like that. There's miles between the towers. So when your cell phone, you dial 911, you could be standing on in Columbus on Broadway, but the closest tower is in Phoenix City. Now, the technology limitations on cellular phones at this point sends you to the 911 center that services the tower upon which you are talking. So at that point, your telephone call is going to be routed to the Phoenix City 911 center. Now, in order to avoid any delays with that, all of our surrounding 911 centers and us, we share one-button transfers. And a lot of times people wonder why we're asking you where you're at, because we see we got a cellular phone call. We know that it's coming from somewhere in the vicinity of downtown Broadway, but we think it might be on a tower in Phoenix City. So we're going to ask you what's the nature of your emergency and where you're located. And if you're on a cellular phone, you need to be prepared to tell us where your location is to the best of your ability, because that determines how fast we can do the correct transfer back to the correct 911 center. All along the river and all along the Harris County border, any place where there is another 911 center, where the tower is located is going to rule. Now, if you go out in the middle of Muskogee County, you're going to talk on a tower that's located in Muskogee County. But as you get to the borders, you might find yourself talking on a tower outside of the county. I know for a fact in Upotoy, where I live, if I walk out on my carport and dial 911, I'm routed to the Talbot County Sheriff. It's just the way the topography works and where the towers are located.
Well, that most definitely explains the concern. That's good information to know. I'm not sure if there's anything that the administration can do through the carriers that are here in Columbus. I'm not sure if there's upgrades or something that's...
Well, what we've done, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but these newest upgrades we've made to the 911 center position us for the next phase of 911. If you'll recall, back in the day, we started out with a basic 911. You dial 911 and it rang in cold, just like a 7-digit number. It just gave you a smaller number to call. Then we added Smart 911, which gave us your address and the name of the person that owned the telephone. This was back before cellular phones were common at all. And then we moved to Phase 1 Cellular, which gave us your cellular telephone number and the company that you were calling from, but nothing else about the call. We're currently in Phase 2, which is an FCC required phase for the cellular phone companies that require them to deliver to us your name, your telephone number, the tower location from which you're speaking, or we're hearing you from, to a quadrant. And in Columbus, the towers are in quadrants, north, south, east, and west, roughly. So we can know that you're talking on the tower that's located at 1203 Broadway in Phoenix City, and you're talking on the northeast face of that tower. So that gives you a cone of possibility of where you're at. Now, as we move forward with the technology, they're going to require these companies to be increasingly accurate with the delivery of location. And Phase 3 and possibly Phase 4 going forward is going to make them give you polling from various towers in order to geolocate you more accurately. But that's technology that the phone companies have to install and develop. And of course, that's a commercial cost that the commercial carriers will have to bear as they meet these requirements going forward with the FCC. In years forward, you'll see this getting increasingly more accurate, but until such time, people with cell phones making cell phone calls should be aware that we might not know exactly where you're at when you call.
Well, this is really good information. A lot of times people think that, the Columbus Police Department is a cure-all, solve-all, and it just, you guys can, if it doesn't happen, then the finger gets pointed in your direction. But in this case, and particularly talking about these calls and dealing with cell phones and technology, it's not all, it's not all perfect.
That's correct.
It's just not. And hopefully, as time goes by, we'll get that solved. My hope is that that a lot of people get to hear what you just said. That's really good information, because it's detailed, but to the lay citizen out there, the average citizen of Columbus, Georgia, that's not talked about enough, and they don't really understand that. And of course, it's like you said, it's just dealing with whether it's close to the river, which the district I represent is close to the river, is close to Russell County, or Harris County as well. So thank you for sharing that in detail. It's good information.
Thank you.
And, Mr. Chairman, we'll have Mike King of CCGTV to pull this piece out, that explanation, and we'll run it on CCGTV for a while so that citizens will get to hear it and understand how that works. It will help, I think, the police department and others as they make those calls into 911.
Well, that's great information. I never really realized, if you think about it, it makes perfect sense that the closest tower is where it's going to route that call. But, some of the television stations and radio stations would probably be happy to issue PSAs on this, just reminding people to take careful note of where they are so that they can quickly and accurately describe to the dispatcher so it can be routed correctly. Oh, hang on.
Well, no, to your point, Mr. Budget Chair, that's really good. Maybe, Mr. City Manager, the opportunity, however it can be done, in consulting with the chief and Major Sweeney and others, but somewhere in our publications and the information that would get out to our community, maybe that list to go through when you're dealing with a cell phone, make sure this is what you need to know, and this is what you need to describe and communicate to the 911 dispatcher, because that is what you just said. Just a lot of people just you just don't think about that when you're calling.
Well, when you're under duress too, I don't think you're thinking that clearly.
And we'll also place that clip on our website as well, so that
Okay.
when people
Good deal.
go to columbusga.org, they'll see it, and we'll have the option to click on it and listen to that few minutes from Major Sweeney.
Okay, Councilor Woodson?
Well, Major Sweeney, Isaiah beat me to it, and so did
I'm sorry.
our counselors. So I just want to now just say thank you. Thank you for the educational piece. And Chief, I wanted to say too, since I have the mic, I would like for every now and then during a work session or on a public agenda, 5 minutes or something, if the police department can come and share some of the things that you described today, some of the programs. There's so much out there and so much going in different ways, and people's lives are so busy, and people make assumptions of what we're not doing. And I think it's important. I know Pops always brings people, to the podium, but I think as a department head, and not only to you, to other department heads that have, I don't know, Isaiah, you could probably think of something maybe on the day we do proclamations, or something where the community can know more what our employees do. Because it seems like in the public eye, we're either always arresting somebody or picking on somebody, or the departments aren't, the department heads in public works only do certain people. And I don't think our community understands the magnitude of the work and the relationship that our department heads have in the community. Because I wasn't aware about the Great Camp and some others, and I made myself some notes to put it on my Facebook. I made myself the notes to call Major Wright and said, give me a flyer or something so I could put on my Facebook. Because my Facebook is personal. I don't use it for anything but personal. But if I know of an event or something going on, I shared it. And today you've brought to my enlightening, and we're part-time. People think we have all the answers. We don't. We depend on you. We depend on staff. And today I learned like 3-4 different things that I'm like, I need to go check that out. That's pretty interesting. And Major Sweeney's report today, thank you for asking, Davis, because we would never know. I think we do so much in this community that we're not aware of, and we need to blow our horns a little bit more, because for the amount of money that, and the way our budget is, we do a lot. And I'm very proud of our community, and I'm very proud of all our departments, because budget time is when you find out what everyone's doing. And that's why, Isaiah, I'm asking, maybe, I don't know how we can work it out, but maybe, show me who you are or something, I don't know. Or maybe something on the Access channel that we could refer people to that show off, our department. And not just plain conversation, the numbers are. It's like this program does this for you. This is how you can communicate with it.
Well,
It's just a suggestion.
and I think it's a good suggestion. One thing that comes to mind we could do, as I look at all of the community activities, for example, we could have a series of, this is a public safety moment, for example, and
There you
then
go.
you explain the 2016 Pastors Academy, or you explain the National Night Out, and these would be just short public safety moments that are spread out throughout the day in CCGTV that explains the various good things that community kinds of things that public safety is doing. So CCGTV is there, and we could also place that kind of thing on the website. And so I think we've got good resources, and we just need to take advantage of those resources and opportunities.
Yeah, and like I saw one on, and I'm sorry, now I'm getting off,
No,
but I'll
you're
be
fine.
done real quick. I just, the moment's just hitting me. So it's like on Facebook, I seen where I think it was in Philadelphia or North Carolina. I don't remember exactly, but a police officer got off their car and played a little basketball with the, just the neighborhood kids that were going just to get to know them. I'm sure our police officers do a lot of things like that, but we never hear about it, and then we get these little instant messages saying, well, why doesn't our police officer do that? Well, they are. We're just not publicizing it. And maybe, Chief, I don't know if y'all have a Facebook or something, or when some of your officers do these great things, in the community, maybe we need to. I always get these little smart little remarks, well, they did it over here. Okay, we do it too. We just don't tell you about it. So I'll be quiet now. I just had a moment that I had to share.
Glad you did. Thank you, ma'am. Councilor Barnes.
I'm glad you're doing this here. Payback is a dog, Chief. You know that? Payback is a dog, Chief, isn't it?
Well,
Time. You want to know something? I'm glad you brought it up, because I don't know how many times, and I've told you, I was even talking about going to Nancy and letting Nancy get on you. You want to know something? People don't know what you do. And Mammy, I'm glad you brought it up. I don't know how many times I've here, and it's all good. This department's doing this here, Public Safety Department. Another Public Safety Department is doing this. What's the police department doing? And when I tell them, I think Nancy's just left, I think, so we'll put her on the spot. But I've told you many times, I applaud the police department, because you can have all the amenities in this city, but if you don't feel safe, you're not going to go to them. You all do an excellent job. But all the things and I know some of the things that you're involved in, you and I communicate a lot, but more people need to know what the police department does for this community. I've been to some of the things at Fort, and Major Wright, you do a fantastic job. Your whole command staff, they do a marvelous job. But people need to know it, Chief. Now, I want to hear amen from you. How many times have I want to hear amen. How many times have you and I talked about this here? Can I get an amen? It's like you're at church now.
a lot.
A lot.
A lot.
They need to know, because I hear this public safety, they're doing this here. This public safety, they're doing that. What does Chief Boren do? See? And when you go out to the churches and you go out to the various communities and you talk, those people, but I'm glad what you said, Isaiah, we need to have something like public safety. Maybe the chief needs to go and do, I see the mayor shaking her head. I think the chief needs to go, and they might have a regular thing, as you suggested, Isaiah, where he goes on, he tells people. Because I think you get a bum rap, personally. I think you get a bum rap, and so many people say, you're just saying that because you're tight with the chief. It's not the fact that I'm tight with you, it's the reality of all the things that you do. The DARE program is phenomenal. Forget that young officer that goes out, you know who I'm talking about, with the wagon, with the thing.
Spencer.
Spencer. I've been in a number of the schools. He does a fantastic job with the youth. Fantastic job with the youth. And so you need to, I'm glad that this is coming up because you don't get the credit. And I think it's because your personality style, you're too low key. But people need to know what the chief of police does in the community. And I'm glad I have an opportunity to do this because the chief ran off at the mouth about something to pay him. You understand? They should have kept to himself. So this is payback right now. But I'm glad maybe that you're saying this because the people, and it's a benefit to the community so that they have points of contact with Major Wright and with your other command staff on the things that the Columbus Police Department rightfully does on an ongoing basis throughout the community. So maybe thank you again for doing that.
Thank you, Councilor Barnes. Thank both you and Councilor Woodson for mentioning that. And, I think the significant thing is that over the last several years, let's face it, public safety has been in the news for all the wrong reasons around our country. And so I think the knee-jerk reaction is to view them all through the same lenses. And I think it just makes me, and I think it does the rest of this group and all the citizens of Columbus, it makes us proud that we're not in the headlines. We're not going to get everything right. I mean, it's a big organization. You guys face stressful situations every single day. But we're getting almost all of them right. And it's a comforting feeling to know the way your folks, from the command staff down to the folks on the beats, are doing their jobs and the way they're doing it. And frankly, playing basketball and everything, they want to do that. Guys, we're about 70 officers down. It's when they're running from call to call and having to prioritize the calls when they're in the midst of one. That's asking a lot, and just want to say thank you for the way you represent Columbus and the way the decorum y'all use when you handle yourselves in dealing with the public, because they are, the toughest thing to do, and I've mentioned other public safety individuals as well. I don't know that I could do it. The toughest thing to do is try to remember that the people you're dealing with deserve respect. They have humanity, and to treat them as such, and still do your jobs and make sure that you're safe. So you guys do a good job. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councilor Davis.
Councilor Henderson, I just wanted to say before these fine men and women get out of here, Chief, just thank you so much for all these years of dedication and hard work. You served our community. I look back behind you, and your command staff is an excellent group of people there, and many years of experience, many years of sweat equity and service to our community, dedication, service to our community. I know you guys, y'all want to get out of here because it's kind of like, sitting, you want to be on the field, you want to be playing. That's what you guys do. I mean, you don't want to be sitting in a meeting anywhere in the dugout. You want to be out on the field playing, and you've served this community well and done a good job. And certainly we'll do whatever we can. I will, whatever we can to support you with what we have. I know the department has challenges, the whole government has challenges, but we just got to keep chipping away at it every year. But that doesn't discount the fact that the men and women in blue, we appreciate them. We appreciate what they do every day. They're out there on the front lines. It's easy being in here, but they're out there on the front lines. And we thank you for your leadership. But please convey that to the men and women in blue that are not here today, that we appreciate all they do. We've got a great community, and like Councilor Henderson said, you look at what's taking place in the rest of the country, we've got a lot to be proud about right here. A lot to be proud about. And we should be proud of CPD, Columbus Police Department.
Thank you.
So thank you all.
Thank you.
Councilor Thomas.
Chief, I just want to add to some of that. In the last couple of weeks, I've had several people mention to me interaction they have had with the Columbus Police Department. One woman said to me how professional the officer looked when he came to her home to take a report. And she said all of our officers look that way. And another incident that was reported to me in the last couple of days. It wasn't a traumatic experience except to the people involved. And this woman told me how comforting the 911 operator was. She stayed on the line with this lady until 2 of your officers arrived. The 2 officers stayed for about 10 or 15 minutes to make sure that everything was okay, and the husband who had fallen was okay. And she said, you just don't understand how comforting it is when you have someone like our officers at CPD who are taking the time. She said it was 10 minutes of their time, but she'll never forget it, she said. And luckily, that's not an unusual occurrence. Our officers do a tremendous job in calming situations, as Councilor Henderson said, making sure that things are taken care of. And I just want to add my appreciation to you and to your staff and to those officers that are out there that are doing that work. Sometimes I know if you're on the line and you're the one in the car or you're the one on the motorcycle, you don't always hear how much your service is appreciated. But I think from the conversations that we've had today, I hope that they know that they are appreciated and what they do does make a difference in our community. We appreciate it. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mayor Pro Tem?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Chief, for always being so responsive when I call.
Yes, ma'am.
And when my constituents want you to come out, you all come out.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the things that we might be able to do to get the information out as to what the police department is doing, have a quarterly program on CCG channel, once a quarter. And Major Wright can come and talk about DARE and GREAT, because the students know what we're doing, but the parents may not know, or the neighborhoods may not know what's going on. And that way you can tell your story, because it's a good story to be told.
We'll be glad to do that. We'll
Thank you.
participate in that. Yes, ma'am.
Chief, I do have one question. That when we're looking at the statistics, and I'm not trying, we've heard at some of the events that the mayor has hosted, the Let's Talk, that do these statistics include juvenile crimes?
They do not.
They do not.
Not unless they're involved in a murder and they've been adjudicated as an adult. But if there's a murder, it's there. And let's put it this way. If there's a break-in of a house, yes, they're included in there. If it's some of the other juvenile offenses that we run into on a daily basis, they would not be a Part 1 crime. They would not be there. If a juvenile commits an auto theft or a robbery or a burglary or a murder, they're on there.
So home invasions are included in that, even if a juvenile is involved?
Correct.
And the reason I ask is because, you know, that is more of a demand on your folks, because a lot of those things are still going on, and I know it adds to the number of calls that may or may not be reported. So
And we're looking at a time too when school's about to be out again, and we're already planning for those, especially in some of the neighborhoods. Children that are not, basically don't have anything else to do during the day except wander through neighborhoods.
Right.
We're already preparing for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yes.
And as part of the police department presentation today, we wanted to go through the police pay reform, and the HR director has passed out a handout, and we'll just kind of walk through that with you and answer any questions. And it is included in the recommended budget.
Is this in the budget already?
Yes, it's already in the budget.
I read it, it's good.
Good morning, council.
Good morning.
I just have a handout that is in your budget. It's titled Police Officer Recruitment for the FY17 budget. This is a proposal, as was stated, that's included in the budget to increase police officer entry-level pay. The proposal is to move entry-level police officers that are at grade 14 to step C and step D for those with a degree. This proposal unfunds 16 positions, and the justification is to recruit highly qualified police officers. In summary, all current police officers that are at step A or B would be moved to step C. The police officers with a degree would be moved to step D. All new police officers would be hired at step C, and those with degrees would be moved to step D. At the time of this report, the police department had 268 budgeted police officer positions. There are 110 police officers that are at step A and 94 that are at step B. 10 of those police officers are already above step C due to longevity. And there, at the time again of this report, there were 54 vacant police officers' positions, and we're aware that that number is higher now. There are 204 police officers at grade 14, step A or B. To move these officers to step C, it would cost $387,990. Police officers with a degree would move to step D, and this would cost an additional $121,820. Regarding the 54 vacant positions, to move these police officers to step C, it would cost $135,617. The total overall cost would be $645,428. If the 16 police officer positions we mentioned were unfunded, there would be a savings of $649,919. This would leave 38 vacant positions funded. The overall cost for the FY17 budget would then be $245,000. The savings from the unfunded police officer positions would pay for the FY17 officer recruitment proposal. We did look at how this would impact sergeants in the department. We considered whether these changes would have a negative impact. After a review, it was determined that this proposal would not negatively impact sergeants or the supervisors. This means that the current and new police officers who are placed at step C or D of pay grade 14 will not exceed the lowest paid sergeant in the department. It should also be noted that administration recognizes that there are pre-existing pay compression issues, and these are not addressed in this particular proposal. Just a snapshot at the bottom of the handout that I provided you. If this proposal is accepted regarding new police officers, a police officer with no degree would start at a pay grade of $40,600. A police officer with an associate's degree would start at $41,488. A police officer with a bachelor's degree would start at $42,736, and a police officer with a master's degree would start at $43,985. As is done in many other law enforcement agencies throughout the nation, other incentives that help in the recruitment of police officers are the additions of incentive pays for those with military experience and those officers who already have their post-certification. So this is an added incentive for recruitment as it relates to police officers with military experience. The department, on average, hires annually about 50 officers. Of those 50 officers, about 12.5 of those officers will have some military experience. If we provide an incentive for them, that would have an annual cost of $15,000. Regarding those officers who have post-certification, again, the department hires an average of about 50 officers annually, and about 12.5 of those officers will have post-certification. This would be an incentive that would be spread over a 3-year period. of $2,400 per officer, and that would be $800 spread over that 3-year period. And that would cost $30,000. So those are additional recruitment incentives that have a minimum cost to those. The last proposal has to do with the FY16, the current budget for police officer retention. And it's proposed to provide a one-time bonus to all sworn officers that are on payroll as of January 1, 2016. This would be a disbursement of salary savings of $523,000. Each sworn officer would receive a one-time bonus of $1,200. Now, I'm advised by the Finance Department in regards to the salary savings that $1,200 could now be $1,500 if council so approves it. There were 429 sworn officers on payroll as of January 1, 2016, and this would cost $514,800. And this payout would take place prior to June 30th, 2016. So that's the proposal, and I'm available to answer any questions, and I know the
Councilor
Deputy City
Thomas.
Manager.
I think that we are being a little disingenuous here. I am in favor of what's on this piece of paper. However, I want to make sure that I have my facts correct. The sign-on bonus of $2,000, as I recall, is paid in 2 installments. It's paid at the end of the first year and at the end of the second year. Is that correct? Half at the end of the first year, half at the end of the second year?
It's actually paid in 4 installments of
Four installments.
$500, and you are correct. So the officer will not receive the full benefit of the sign-on bonus in their first year. It's going to be spread out over 2 years.
And once that $2,000 has been paid, it is not reoccurring.
That's correct.
So that what is reoccurring, if you look at the chart that you gave us for the officer without a degree, the base pay of $35,480 and the bonus from the OLOST of $3,121, that's what is ongoing.
That's
The
correct.
$2,000 is not. So the salary, the ongoing salary of that person is not $40,000. The ongoing salary of that person is $38 plus. Is that correct?
That is correct. Keep in mind also, Councilor Thomas, Council did approve in the FY16 budget the pay reform for longevity. So this $2,000 is going to be spread over a 2-year period of that new officer. And on the 3rd year, they'll be eligible for pay reform, which starts out at $1,000 and then $1,300 and $1,500. So they do get a catch-up there.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're saying it correctly. I don't want some officer to say to me, you said I'm going to have a salary of $40,000, and I don't have a salary of $40,000. It's, whatever it is. As I said, I am fully supportive of this process and the way we're doing this, but I just want us to make sure that our terminology is the same because we often have questions asked of us by citizens about, how does this work? Thank you.
Councilor Woodson?
Thank you very much. I also wanted to know, we always talk about the salary and the base salary that we're offering the officers to come, the new hires. Are we also telling them about the other benefit packets, like the car they get, that they're able to use their equipment, their weapons? Because I know when we were looking and comparing with other communities, some officers have to have their own weapon, or they paid their own Social Security. They did other benefits. Knowing the dollar amount is great, but do you know there's more to that packet that's not in dollars that's beneficial to you compared to other communities?
We spend a lot of time going through that with officers, and I have the captain and our HR Bureau here today, Jim Pope, and we spend a lot of time going through that with people. One of the current people that we lost to a very small town just north of us, a town, not a county, but a town. And his reasoning behind leaving was not that he made more money, it was that he didn't have to pay as much in benefits. So therefore, with the amount of money that he made, even though it was less than, by the money that he saved by not having to pay the benefits, it now brought him back up to about what he takes home today. We're constantly having to address these things within the department, and that's a plus when we have our own HR area within the police department, is the fact that we can address these things as they're occurring. Rether has had to get involved in a lot of that stuff with us and talking to some of the people. And that's a reason that we have the exit interviews. And hopefully when they spell it out for us, we can either talk to them or we can hopefully change it to where it won't occur again. But there's not a lot we can do about salary and benefits and them coming in and saying, well, I don't want to work this shift or that shift because I really need to be somewhere else, or I need to work another job during that time. We just have to put it in a rotation basis, and there's not a lot we can do with things like that. They can't come in today and be in my chair tomorrow. We deal with that a lot with the millennials, a lot. In the recruitment of the new folks, your average millennial will have 4 jobs in 2 years. And once they get with us, we hope that the anchor comes out for a little while anyway. And through some of the monies being spread out over a 3-year period of time, and then on some of the others being spread out over a 2-year period of time, we hope to have them for at least that period of time before they start looking at something else. Now, with the pay bonus that we're requesting this year, the one-time bonus out of salary savings, you know, that is a very plus, very positive for the officers that have stuck it out with us and has had to ride maybe a beat and a half or 2 beats because somebody that's riding a beat right beside him, you know, we may not have the individual. So, and for the extra work, the hard work that they've done and the dedication to the department and the city that they've done, and that's the reason for the one-time bonus with that.
Oh, I don't have a problem with any of it. I mean, I read it last night, and I was like, okay, not a problem. I understood it.
We're constantly trying to stay ahead of the wave, constantly.
I was just trying to see, to have a better understanding, you know, during the conversation with the individual, when you talk about the salary, do they know, hey, you know, compared to other communities, we provide you with a vehicle, we provide you with this and this, compared to another community where you would have to have this equipment on your own or you couldn't use it. That's what I was trying to find out, if we added some of those pluses during our conversation. I have no problem with what's being presented.
The small towns that, believe it or not, every 5 years, we rotate a vest, depending on when that vest was purchased. The expiration date on that vest is 5 years. There's actually towns, small towns within the state of Georgia that cannot afford to buy vests. Well, in all honesty, there's nothing wrong with the vest other than the fact that the warranty is now expired and the manufacturer won't back it in case an officer is injured. So we will take and give those vests with approval from council or approval from the finance office. We will give that to the individual departments that can't afford it and try to assist them as much as we can. And we have individuals that come with us, and I think we've seen it lately in a county just east of us, that's wanting a couple of old cars, things that we have scrapped out and turned in. Same thing with an ambulance, same thing with a fire truck. They just can't afford it.
I saw something like that, a request made. I think it was from the fire department. I think it was, I saw that was making a request of equipment that we had.
And to add on to Councilor Woodson, and the Chief and I talk about this a lot, we really have great benefits. Our pension, we have a defined pension plan. Few communities still have that. They've shed it over the years because it's so expensive. And some employees, given their age or their place in life, that's not as valuable to them. As they start having children and families and maybe getting some years, they start realizing how beneficial it is to know for a fact that when you reach a certain age, you're going to receive a check for a specific amount for the rest of your life. But when they're 26 or 27, they may prefer to have that cash value. So we've actually seen, in some instances, police officers going to communities with lesser benefits because their paycheck is a little more because they're not paying for a defined benefit plan. They're not paying for an insurance plan or a health care plan that covers what ours does. And I think we all have, as we've talked about health care in this, we all have talked about instances where spouses who are otherwise very gainfully employed with large corporations or other business entities still come to join our health care plan because our benefit is so much better than it is at these other companies. My spouse, for instance, I know Lucy Sheftel's spouse, and many, many others have choose to be on this plan because it's just frankly better than others. So that has a cost. Some of our employees demand that and wouldn't work here if we didn't have those great benefits. Others of our employees would prefer to have the cash value of those benefits.
And I think it's the other counties, the other cities that are not explaining it well enough. I don't know that it's us. I think that when they see pie-in-the-sky proposal placed in front of him in a single dollar amount, then that's not necessarily the full explanation of what the money is or what his benefits are later.
And just one, hold on, Councilor Davis.
Go ahead, Councilor Henderson.
No, that's all right, go ahead.
Well, I want to segue to another aspect of this conversation we're having. We're talking about solving a challenge in the police department, and the chief spoke earlier about the many challenges, and there are several challenges that are out there. I think the recruiting aspect is one, and we're trying to make a difference there in the limited resources that we have. But I only view this as part of the solution. Maybe you can say it might be somewhat a majority of the solution from a percentage standpoint, but I think there's other aspects here that we got to look at as well. And Mary, being the head of public safety and Director Hollowell, along with working with the administration of the CPD, I think it's imperative that we start looking at better policies or potential policies. Now, in respect to the labor laws, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what can and can't be done. But I do know we're spending a lot of money. The city of Columbus has spent a lot of money. We train and we train. We have some of the best training. We're known for having the best training around. And we invest a lot in training. And it pays off. It pays off in the professional standards of the department, the integrity and the character of the department. But a lot of times that investment decides to go elsewhere, like we're talking about. And many times within our own government, other agencies of our own government. So from a policy standpoint, you know, I would like to see the administration start looking at some ways that we can retain these officers longer if we invest in them, that they will stay with the CPD, or set up our policies that requires officers, if they make that decision, to stay with us for a while or to stay with the CPD for a while. I think we need to have that conversation, because that's the other part of it. You can keep throwing money at it left and right, but in reality, you know, you've got a very competitive market out there with headhunters that are taking them as fast as CPD can train them.
Yeah.
So, you know, in the world I came from, you know, that was the aspect of multi-year contracts. I don't know, you know, that's a whole different level we're talking about, and I'm probably not able to do that here from that standpoint.
Yeah.
But it's a kind of the concept of being able to retain those valuable officers to provide the services that are needed in our community.
Yeah, a couple of really good points, and then, of course, the chief can speak from his perspective. One, the chief and I have talked about the fact, and we'll continue to look into the fact, that in some communities, they do not allow intergovernmental transfers in the same free way that we do. There's a penalty imposed or some sort of recoupment. So we can look at that and see if it's productive or counterproductive, and we certainly will, because there are other communities that just don't allow that, to go to another office within the city after they've been trained by one person's budget or whatever. So we'll take a look at that and see if that's effective. Now, the other aspect is going to other communities, and there's a couple of things going on there, again, from the mayor's perspective. One, other communities do allow lateral transfers, so they'll take you in as a sergeant, or they'll promote you to a sergeant because you have this Columbus CPD training and you're a very valuable commodity. We don't do that. You have to start back at square one. So if somebody came into this community and had been a lieutenant somewhere else or captain somewhere else, they could certainly not be a lieutenant or captain at CPD. They'd have to start over as a patrol officer. And of course, that means we don't get the benefit of other people's training. But one thing we have done, I think, that we'll begin to address that at the chief's discretion of where they might be placed in the system, is that now we are going to give them a bonus for being post-certified. So they're going to have either come in as a newbie, if you will, and paid for that post-certified training themselves, or they will have been post-certified because they're associated with another law enforcement agency, and then the chief and his command staff can make the decision as to where that person is going to be ranked. So perhaps that will clear it up. And then the last comment I'll say is that I think the fact of the matter is that in these urbanized communities, when you're a Columbus police officer, you are a real intensively trained police officer. It is a full throttle community. You may go to a domestic dispute, you may go to a drug transaction aftermath. It could be anything, and not all police, communities deal with that. And so they know that when they're picking off our police officers and a few other communities that are highly urbanized, where they're highly trained, that they're getting the cream of the crop. And it's just, they're very high valued assets. So we're not the only ones struggling with that. Other urbanized communities are struggling. Georgia does allow you to recoup, to claw back that, $2,500 car. They've monetized the cost if another Georgia police jurisdiction takes your officer after you've trained them. But if they're a 3 or 4 or 5 year officer, you don't get it back. So Chief, what comments do you have?
There's a 2-year limitation on that. If we hire someone and train them, get them through mandate, and they leave this department within a 2-year period, we can recoup our training cost from the other agency that accepts that officer. And that's law. That's Georgia law. And to follow up a little bit on what the mayor said about bringing people in with rank, we're under ordinance with the Columbus Police Department. Kalia oversees that, as well as Georgia certification plus city ordinance as to what we can and can't do. I would not want to hire a lieutenant that had been in a small town in Georgia that had absolutely nothing to do on a daily basis except show up at an office and then bring him into the Columbus Police Department as a lieutenant. That would not be fair to my people. It would not be fair to him, because I'd have brand new officers that have been here 2 years that could run rings around what he could do. And I have problems with that.
And Chief, I appreciate you highlighting that. And let me just say, like I said earlier, I think this needs to be a communication with the administration and our Director of Public Safety, which is our mayor, and others, and trying to understand this a little bit more, and certainly taking that into consideration. And for this conversation today, from this perspective, I was more focusing on patrol officers coming in. There were some other points. The mayor brought up some points. You made some points as well of things that could be addressed, but it might be a little more complicated and a challenge. But as respect to initially, and I'm not really talking about trained officers coming in. That's a whole different game. But initially, the officers that we need, that we're recruiting and we're training, and we're trying to get them to stay. And there might even be in the brokerage world, they tend to pay bonuses sometimes from a standpoint of a loan if you stay. And I don't know if that's an aspect that can be done from a labor law standpoint in government in respect to government. But anyway, whatever. You know, and these are just things that are just kind of going through my mind. But I do know the premise of what I'm trying to say here is that you can throw money to try to throw money at something to try to come up with a solution to a challenge, but that's not the whole equation. There's another part of it as well, and so it needs to be blended. So we do need to have that conversation. I would hope from a council standpoint that sometime in the near future that you could come back and maybe address that with us as what else can be done.
Sure, and we do talk about it all the time, and when we do find some idea where we think this would be fruitful and productive, then of course bring it to you. To your point about the bonus for longevity, as you were saying, sometimes brokers, if they've been somewhere for so long, then they can get a certain bonus. Well, we did that as we can do it within our construct last year. So if you've been with us for 7 years or 10 years, you will get an additional bonus, and they are cumulative. So as Councilor Thomas asked a question about the signing bonus expiring, that's true, but then if you stay that third year, you get I think it's a $1,200 or $1,300 bonus, and then if you stay with us till 5 years, you get another $1,500 on top of the $1,300. If you stay with us 7 years, you get another $1,500 on top of the 15, on top of the 13. So it's only been in place 1 year, but eventually, because it's regimented, the officers will be able to see, by the time I've been here X years, my salary will be at least this much, and that doesn't include COLAs or other raises. Now, one thing, if we get more funds in the future and our revenue situation loosens up a bit, we can always enhance those milestones. So instead of 1,300, 1,500, instead of 1,500, 1,700. Make it more meaningful in that regard. But we have addressed the bonus, and we continue to, and we'll certainly bring the ideas back.
You're right, Mayor. We have taken steps as far as retention, but what I was really focusing on was the aspect of if you invest, that you're able to retain that if they do not stay. I know there's clawbacks and all, but the standpoint of increasing the bonuses potentially from a loan, maybe a loan aspect that you could take back if they don't meet a maturity date as far as staying with the department. So that's what I was kind of addressing.
Thank you. And, I think Councilor Davis is exactly right. You can't get in a continuous high-stakes poker game where I'll see you and I'll raise you, I'll bump you a nickel, I'll bump you a nickel. I mean, and there's got to be things that we can do as a government that, maybe we take a page out of some of these larger businesses and do a focus group and invite folks that are at different stages of their career, and let's just talk about it. Just see what are some things that we can do that that are non-monetary in nature that we can try to do to enhance that retention. I know you guys work on that 24/7. I did want to make one point just for folks watching. When we talk about unfunding 16 positions, this is not a personnel cut as much as it is just an embracing of reality. Because even when we've been at peak hire times, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I don't know that we've ever been less than about 10 to 15 to 20 open positions. So this is really just recognizing that those typically go unfilled anyway. And it's just authorized. I think the mayor's been creative in authorizing the chief to use those funds to enhance some of the recruitment opportunities. Okay. Any other questions for the chief?
I want to take a second and thank you for listening to this. Thank you for your continued support of the department. Thank you for this one-time bonus to the officers. I think that'll send a very positive message that if you stick it out with us long enough, we'll take care of you. And I think that'll do that. I think it's here. There's been a lot of time spent with the mayor and the city manager and the finance director, now the assistant city manager, in reference to putting a plan like this together just to take care of our officers. And from the top, I want you to know that I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
And if you do want to, the only thing in the budget is the $1,200 bonus for 2016. And the finance deputy city manager is now telling us that apparently there's additional salary savings over and above what I knew about when I proposed the budget. And so if you wanted to increase it to $1,500 bonus, that would have to be on the ad list. So do you want to speak to that, Mayor?
And because this is part of the FY16 budget and will be paid out, that will come back as a separate resolution approval to council in the month of June and be paid out in June. And at this time, the proposal is $1,200 unless council wanted to request to increase it to $1,500.
And it would have to go on the ad.
It
Mayor
will-
Pro Tem asked to go ahead and put it on the ad list, and so we can
The money's
consider it.
already there.
Okay.
But it has to be put on the ad.
Since it's 2016.
Right, it's 2016, so what we'll do is bring a resolution to council either at the May 24th or the June 7th meeting, getting requests for approval, and if council wants to increase it to $1,500 at that time, then we can amend that resolution.
Wait, before we put it on the ad.
Well, there's no
and if
ad
there's
list. It'd
consensus,
be
we can-
FY16, you just bring the resolution. I think the Mayor Pro Tem just wants you to bring that.
Sure.
I was going to say, if there's consensus here, we might as well bring what you want and not have to amend it at the table if there was consensus.
It seems like there is.
Okay.
Well, that consensus word's gotten us bitten a few times lately. Why don't you just bring the resolution?
Okay, we'll do that. And next on the agenda is the Elections Director, Nancy Bourne.
And while we're waiting, I know last week we did this, but I know we've got two candidates for District 8 seat, and I think it'd be wise to make these presentations available to both of them. One of them will be sitting here within a week of the election, and we'll still be doing the final voting on the budget. So if we could, let's just make sure that Mr. Garrett and Mr. Davis both have access to these presentations.
Do you have an extra? I don't need it, I guess. I have an extra if you need it. Okay. We ready?
Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here to tell you about the FY17 budget information. The recommended FY17 budget does not include funding for a state or local runoff in the event that that is necessary. If necessary, that runoff will be held on December the 6th, and the requirement for that state or local runoff will not be known until after the November 8th general election is certified. There's another little quirk in the law that requires us to have a federal runoff if there is a federal candidate that requires a runoff, and that election date will be January the 10th. Funding is not included in the FY17 recommended budget for the federal runoff also. We also will not know the status of that until after the November 8th general election results are certified. So again, we have a state or local runoff possibility on December the 6th, and because of a law, it was a federal court law that ruled that we have 45 days between a general election and a federal runoff. That federal runoff is January the 10th. That would require additional funding for two runoffs if both runoffs are necessary. The state runoff is going to cost approximately $70,000, and again, that is the state and local runoff. If we end up with numerous candidates for local offices, again, that will be on December 6th. If we have a federal runoff, the funding for that request will be $80,000 for a total of $150,000 if both runoffs are necessary. We won't know until November 8th whether or not those runoffs will be necessary or not. We'll know more information after the ballot is compiled and after we have all of the information for the November 8th general election ballot. So I'll have a better feel of it at that point after we determine the number of independent, write-in, or other kinds of candidates that we have that will appear on the November 8th general election ballot. Just wanted to make council and the budget committee aware of the possibility of both of those runoffs, and if you have any questions, I'm available.
Yes, ma'am. Counselor Thomas.
Ms. Board, do you have any sense of what might be a runoff on the federal, what race might be in a runoff on the federal level?
The congressional seat, it would be one seat, and that would be your federal runoff. So congressional districts 2 or 3, either one of those, if they need a runoff, if you have a strong third-party candidate who pulls away enough votes so that one candidate does not get that 50% plus one requirement, the majority requirement, then we will need a runoff, and that would be January the 10th.
Have we had runoffs on the federal level recently, or is that an unusual event, or?
This is a fairly new law that was put in place after the state of Georgia was sued because we do not have 45 days for the military to return their ballot between an election or a primary and the runoff subsequent to that primary or general election. So it was the state of Georgia is under a ruling that we have to provide 45 days between a primary and the runoff or a general election and the runoff. So this is about our second election cycle where we've had that federal court ruling in place. And so we don't have a lot of historical data to go back on.
Mr. Budget Chair, I'm not sure, are you asking us to increase your budget by the 150, or just to be aware that that might be something that after November the 8th, you'll come back to us and say, I need some more money?
Yes, I'm not asking you to increase the budget by $150,000 at this point, but I did want to make council aware that that could be a possibility at some point in time after the November 8th general election.
Okay, thank you.
Duly noted. Counselor Woodson.
Yes, Angelica, based on this information, I don't know, hi Nancy, and sorry that you had to wait so long.
That's okay.
Angelica, based on the information we're getting today, has it been brought to your attention you're prepared to have some $150,000 available if we should need it? Or is that something that being advised today we would start looking for? Because at first I thought that Nancy wanted it to be put on her budget, but she's saying no. So my thought now is, do we have a plan B in case she should need this funding, that it be available?
That's definitely something that we would have to take a look at as we get within the FY17 budget year. We'll certainly project any revenues that are coming in at that time and any expenditures, and see if there are some adjustments that we could make at that particular moment in time. But I don't have a plan as it stands right now.
Okay. Well, at least we've been notified now, so we have several months to try to come up with some miracle money.
Right.
In case it's needed. Hopefully it will not be, but if not, it's wonderful to have Plan B ready. Even if you find the money, we put it aside, and it comes to where we don't need to use it, it could always go back to the area where we took it from. I just would feel comfortable knowing that we did have a Plan B, knowing that it's a possibility that we'll have to come up with $150,000.
And another thing that we'll take a look at is how we finish up with FY16.
Okay. Because there may be some funding
There
from
may be some
there
funding
that could
available.
be.
That's
Okay,
correct.
wonderful. Well, I'm glad that, Nancy, you came and let us know, so we're prepared for it. And it won't be a surprise or a shocker if we had to come up with $150,000.
And Councilor Woodson, we can also look at the information, the ballot information, once we have it in August, and have a little bit of a better feel. Those races that have 3 candidates or more, certainly those are the only races in which you can have a runoff.
Correct.
And we can determine better if it would be a state or local runoff or a federal runoff at that point. And so we'll have a little more advance notice if we look at it in August.
Okay, well, thank you to you and your staff for all you do. I know you don't get many thank yous very often, and Miss Janet, I see you back there. Thank you for all you do for us. We appreciate it. not only as an elected officials, but as citizens of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Counselor Huff.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry, I've been working all morning. I've been live streaming, listening to all of it. Only question I had was, if we're ever in need of a emergency special elections, are there funds for that?
That's what we talked about.
Yeah, this is for runoffs. It didn't
No,
say. This is for
no-
everything?
There is no funding for an emergency special election.
Okay.
That would be additional.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that would be by court order of a Superior Court judge.
Okay.
So, yes.
So,
Or a
based on
vacancy
what I was
created.
listening to coming in, it's just based on you have a budget, and then you move forward with, if there's a runoff unexpectedly, you have to fund for that, and then find monies for that anyway. And then, I'm just talking about emergency, it rarely happens, but if it comes up, then that has to go through Superior Court.
A regular runoff does not have to go through a Superior Court judge, but a special election that a
Special
Superior
election.
Court judge calls for does go through a Superior Court judge.
Okay.
And the way we calculate whether we budget for a runoff is we look at historical occurrences. We always know that there's a summer runoff, so we always budget for the summer runoff. We've not had the December runoff in many years, and we've never had the January runoff since that law has been in place. So that's why budgeting or funding was not requested for those two runoffs in December and in January.
Okay. And our average is still, what, 80 to 100,000 for a runoff?
Yes.
Okay.
Runoffs are a little less expensive because it's based on the number of precincts that you have to open. The staffing is a lot less, and then the turnout is a lot less.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Watch step.
And that concludes the budget review session for today. The May 24th would be the last budget review session, and that council meeting has been rescheduled for 9 a.m., so the budget review session will start immediately following council. On the agenda for next Tuesday includes the marshal, clerk of municipal court, public works, the sheriff, and the civic center, and the add-delete list. And we have passed that out to you, and we only had the one item today that really deals with FY16 budget, so we'll
Ms. Hodge, let me
bring
just
that
ask you
back.
a question. I know we've put a lot of folks on that 24th, which is fine. It's just that the challenge is if there are any adds or deletes that they want to make, some of them may need a couple of days to go through the line items and see what they want to suggest or recommend. How would it impact our timeline for the advertisement and the public hearings on the Taxpayer Bill of Rights if we had an emergency meeting on the 31st?
The requirement, the way the schedule is set now, is the ads would be in the newspaper on the 31st for the June 7th meeting. Now, on the June 7th meeting is the first reading of the budget ordinance, so it's open to any adjustments during first reading. So there would still be time for council to make any changes during first reading to the budget ordinance.
So the ads that go out don't have to, okay. I'm just asking because we may be in a situation where there are members of the committee that are not comfortable.
Well, I wonder,
finalizing.
too, if, we will have council that morning, and I don't know what that agenda looks like, but...
We've got a work session scheduled, right, on the 31st?
No, I'm talking about on the 24th.
Oh, okay.
Because it is, because, of course, Pat was going to come and her today, and her, it probably will be lengthy, but I was just going to offer if perhaps we could start a little earlier if our agenda is not too terribly full on the 24th. If we start at 9 and finish up like we did last time, at 11:30, we could get a couple
I think that's
hours.
fine. I think my comments were more in line with the fact that we have challenged the Budget Committee, if they do make any kind of changes, to try to have looked through the line item to see if they could find something else. And many times, when they hear something from a department head, they may think of something they want to add or delete. I'm just trying to figure out, I think we need to have another opportunity, whether we need it or not, at least held back after the 24th, just in case. I don't know that it will occur, but I don't want to I don't want to end up finding out we need another meeting.
Can we cancel the
Vote
work
the budget.
session and make that?
Well, I think the advertisement has to be placed ahead of then, and it
The
will
ad is-
appear on the 31st.
Right, the ad is scheduled to be in the newspaper for the Taxpayer Bill of Rights and for the budget ordinance, would be in the paper on May 31st. It must be 7 days in advance of the meeting, which will be held on June 7th. But again, there are still opportunities to make changes
Yeah,
on
so
June
it-
7th. If you
bottom-
made changes on the 31st, we would make those changes at the meeting on June 7th.
Okay, and I knew the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and that's really just outlining the value of the mill so that people understand that there may be some increase in their taxes, even though there was no increase in the millage.
That's correct.
But I had forgotten that the budget ordinance had to be published then as well. But we can still deal with that, and we can make any modifications, particularly if it's a wash, if they did identify something. So,
That's correct.
okay. All right. Any further questions? Counselor Davis?
Yeah, Deputy City Manager Hodge, when can I expect some of those, the documents and information that was asked for at some of the prior budget meetings?
We did pass out the responses at the last meeting. The one request that you made, requesting a 5-year plan, we're working on that, and as soon as we can get that completed, we'll provide that to
Well, then, I
council.
know I gave you a number of requests, but I don't think, I'll go back and look, but I don't think that I've received the information in that, the question answer list you're talking about.
Okay, we'll be happy to respond to those if there's something that's not on that list, but I
I
believe
know
we
I
passed
saw
that
people
out.
take, there were notes being taken, so I hope that I can get that information for some of these key dates. That's what I'm trying to say, is we got some key dates coming up. I'd like to take a look and have time to analyze some of that.
The only outstanding request that we have from that meeting was the 5-year strategic plan that you had requested, and also the length of time property liens are kept, and that was given a 6-month time period to come back with an update. So if there's additional information that we haven't provided, I'll get with you, and we'll definitely provide that.
At the end of this meeting, can you give me another copy of that list that you're
Absolutely.
looking at there? Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Did you have, I think Counselor Allen, he's out of town, and he did want something added on, put on the delete list. He has questions remaining about the after-school program increase. So just for the sake of discussion, to get it on there so that we can talk about it next week, if you would delete that $200,000 additional revenue from the increase, I think it was a $4 across-the-board increase in the levels of care for the after-school program.
Okay.
All right. If there's no other questions or no other comments? Well, I think both. He had talked about that, but there was some concerns as well, I think, about the ability to, for some families to continue to have economical care. All right?
Chairman,
Yes.
let's make it clear for the public listening, there will be a 9 o'clock meeting next week, regular meeting. There will be a work session on the 31st at 9 o'clock.
That's correct. And
Still-
the budget review, final budget, scheduled budget review meeting will be following the council meeting on the 24th.
Right. But there'll be an additional work session on the 31st at 9.
The work session, I think on the 31st, is simply the regularly scheduled fifth Tuesday work session
That's
for
right.
council. Yes, but
Okay.
it may or may not, we typically call the meeting to order for a work session, don't we? So we would be able to conduct business and make amendments to the budget, if
All right.
necessary.
Okay.
That's right. We'll know that when we leave the 24th. It will probably not be necessary, but it could be. Thank you, sir. All right, no further questions. We are adjourned.